You can never go home again. For those of you who find yourselves in Azeroth for the first time in years, the world has changed while you were away. It has suffered many losses, but this loss of a healer, a tank, a large bottom crit chicken who somehow always filled my screen, this loss is ours. As we gather here at Red Rock, a resting place for great Tauren warriors and heroes, we remember Thayala. Tauren Druid of the Collective. Sorry. Thayala, or Thay, left Azeroth over 4 years ago. Because he didn't want to lose out on hanging out with his friends, we had to lead him to realize he wasn't enjoying the game, and that what he was enjoying, like trips to Broadway and golf outings, time in Austin, and other life changes, didn't mean he had to stay in a game to have a friendship. I promised him my friendship wasn't tied to pixels, and that I'd always be there for him. I tried my best, and I did until he wouldn't allow it. For me, today is the saddest homecoming. I'm so happy to see you all here. And just so shredded to know you're here to say goodbye. That was the easy part. If you close your eyes and think of Thayala as a person, not a character in a game, you probably think of his laughter. It was a hearty laugh that came from his soul, a vibrato and a tremble, which could turn into a childlike giggle. We had a name for that. It was called Breaking Thay. If you met him, it's more than a sound. It's the way his eyes also shone. The way his eyes lit up and the slight smirk of his mouth. His entire body laughed. He was every bit a Tauren in real life, a giant but gentle and sensitive, peaceful and caring, and deeply spiritual man. The first time I met him, face to face, I remember feeling like a tiny gnome next to him. And then he bull rushed me into a bear hug, and if you know me, you know I probably stopped in my tracks and lost my breath a little bit. After that quick moment of panic, something quickly followed, and it was that it felt right. That was Thay, a gentle soul who just made things feel right. However you met Thay, whatever your experience with him, that's yours, and you get to keep that forever. And so, I'm having a hard time. That was as much as I could write, because I kept ruining the ink. It's kind of funny, though, because I kind of look for signs from the universe, and the day that Thay was supposed to be sent to hospice, my jasmine plant bloomed. One bloom. And I was so excited that morning I woke up because there was a bloom. And I was going to take a photo and I was going to send it to him because that's what I had done. I continued our friendship, sending him inane pictures of raccoons on my deck, or the day I voted, I sent him a message telling him, "Can you believe that these were my voting options?" And he laughed. And just inane banter, and that's what it was. And that evening before I went to bed, I remembered I hadn't actually taken the photo, and I went to go take the photo when the flower was dead. I didn't think anything about it then. I didn't think anything about it at all, other than, well, it wasn't supposed to bloom this time of year anyway. And then I woke up Thursday morning. The last conversation I had with Thay, where we actually really talked, he asked me if there was a storm that was going to come. And it wasn't. And I now know of it. He was laying in a hospital bed in Ann Arbor, thinking about the weather here. And whether or not I was going to be okay to handle it. Because he didn't know whether or not Mike was home. And here we are on this first day of spring, and Mike's home, and it's the middle of March, and we're expecting 6 to 8 inches of snow. So, I don't know if you believe in signs from the universe, but it's hard not to find that kind of funny. Mike, did you want to say anything? Yeah, I'm finished for now. You know, I'm not done. You guys might not have known this, but Thay kept his life very compartmentalized, and he was very private about a lot of things. And he was very selective about what he shared. And one of the things that affected my life the most was his spirituality and his faith in something else. And at a time in my life when I was really sick and really not doing well, there were a couple of people who shared their spirituality and their faith with me. One was Tua, and the other was Thay. And I don't know what I would have done without those words and those thoughts and that ability to just kind of accept that there can be things that I don't understand and that I can just accept them because he did. So, some of you have asked if there's a memorial for the family, like a fund for them, and they're okay. They don't need your finances or your contributions. If you want to donate something, they felt really strongly about his church and his church program, and I will be posting information on how you guys can donate to that if you would like. If you want to do it from the gaming community or his gaming friends, that would be great. Because a lot of us weren't able to be at his memorial. So I think I'm finished being able to talk now. So now Mike has to try.
I cannot use that item yet.
Well, that was a lot harder to listen to than I thought it was going to be.
There's no crying in baseball.
I don't know if you want to continue transcribing Ren. My remarks are not quite as prepared as Christie's, and they'll be a little shorter. I only have a couple of things I want to add. First off, there's always a tendency when you have a remembrance of somebody like this to um, skew the memory a little bit, think of them only in a positive light, and I'm not necessarily that way. So I'll talk a little bit about not necessarily negatives, but some of the other sides of Thay. He was, we played WoW with him. We met him in WoW. Most of you probably know he stopped playing WoW several years ago, and as Christy said, we almost had to force him to stop. Um, Playing games with him was always an interesting affair. I'll relate a story that none of you were there for. He and I played Borderlands together a little bit. And for any of you who have ever played Borderlands, it's a multiplayer first-person shooter. You can have up to 4 people in your party, and so it's a little smaller scale. And we were off doing something, and we went into this little encampment, and he just kind of took off and started like running around, jumping in all the mobs and aggroing them, and they came running back with this like giant wave of mobs, and I was like, "What the hell are you doing, you dumbass?" And he's like, "I don't know." Just and that's kind of what it was like playing with him all the time. He would just do weird stuff like that. Um, I'd be remiss. Christy didn't mention the time he showed up to raid without gems in his new gear. I feel like I can't skip that. That happened.
He didn't even know he had the new gear.
I think my biggest problem with him, though, is that he was just too nice. He was nice to a fault. I think when Christy tells about the time that she had to convince him not to raid anymore, I think he was still raiding because he was too nice to stop. Um, he was infuriatingly nice. Probably more nice than he should have been, unfortunately. So, as Christy said, he kept his life very compartmentalized. So I don't know a lot of some of the areas of his life where that may have gotten him into some trouble. But I'm guessing it was the case, just knowing him. So, uh, a number of you know him mostly through the podcast. Obviously, even after he stopped playing WoW, he still was podcasting for a very long time. And I'm not sure yet what we're gonna do with the podcast, if we're gonna continue it or put it on hold, or we haven't really talked about it. It's been kind of the last thing from our minds, so I'm not here to make any predictions or just that, but certainly it was interesting dealing with him on the podcast. And I will say that one of the first things that hit me when I was thinking about not doing the podcast with Thay was that tomorrow's Apple event will be the first one where he won't be one of the first people that I talk to about it. Yeah, that's pretty much all I had. I don't think I can talk anymore.
So, I just had more to say and I lost it. Um, There's an easy way to remember Thay, and it's because we recorded hours and hours of conversation. If you want to find what a listener pointed out is probably one of the best examples of breaking Thay, I don't know what episode it is, but it's when I told the story of Layman electrocuting himself while trying to take the power supply out of his computer. That laugh I can still remember. So, if anyone else has anything they'd like to say for Twitch and YouTube and themselves, you guys, I don't have a plan on how to do that. I guess if you are in the special chat or in Say, type 1 so we can see who wants to talk. Let's all go to the lobby. I don't know why I just sang that. Oh boy. Anyone? Bueller? You guys don't have to say anything. I just thought that maybe someone had something to say.
It is not ready yet.
Go for it, Bourbon.
I didn't know Thay personally, so I can't really comment on a lot of the stuff that he did in his life, but I've listened to the podcast since like '07, and when he joined, I think it was '09. It was kind of hard to see how he'd be able to live up to Evil Chris, and I was kind of doubting in the beginning, but as time went on, it became very apparent that he was fit right at home on the podcast, and it was great every week listening to you guys and listening to you make him laugh and all the insight he had, and it was just obvious that he was so genuine and sincere, and his friends loved him, and even though he was a Mac fanboy, I still like to listen to all the things he had to say about the tech industry and stuff like that. So I'll miss hearing him every week, and I just hope his family's doing okay. So that's it.
Just as an aside, can probably say this now that he's gone, and it was in his obituary, but he actually did work for Apple. That's part of the reason he was such a big Mac fanboy.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
It was one of those things that he kind of kept quiet. He did leave the company a couple of years ago, but yeah, he that's part of the reason he was. He liked to refer to himself as an Apple dick rider, and that's why.
The truth comes out.
Does anyone else have anything else to say so that we can
Go ahead, Barry.
Well, I'm praying that my mic is set up right. Can you guys hear me okay? So I only got to meet. I mean, Thay was part of the second group that was my on ramp to rating, and so I first got to know him there. And it's been so sentimental to see all of you logging in this weekend because you're all character models and voices. I mean, that's how I know most of you, except for the very few that I've met in person. Is I know your voice through this very horrible program that is Vent. And my one memory of mine that stands out with Thay is we were in Nax, and it's back when Hunter still had staff, and he was on his druid, and I think I rolled on a staff and got it, and I thought it would have been better for him, and this was before you could give things back to people, and I just remember having a chat with him because I thought he was pissed at me at first. Um, but to the point about nice, he assured me it was fine, though he may have been hating my guts at the time. But when Christy opened up and said, you can never go home, it's my relationship with World of Warcraft is an interesting one, and a lot of it has to do with my time in the collective and with you guys, both when we raided, but also when our kids came along and raiding wasn't practical anymore. And it has changed so much. And I don't expect to see many of you back in after this weekend, but I think this is one of the closest to the real world experiences that I've had in my now many years with this game. I buried my grandfather at the start of this year, and the familiarity of being at the funeral home and watching all of my cousins and distant relations showing up, and seeing your familiar character names, and then seeing all these Tauren and trolls that watched me lie on the floor of various raid encounters for so many years has been a really great thing, and I think it's this is a very touching tribute to a sweet guy who was a part of our lives through this venue. So thanks, Mike and Christy and Ren, for putting this together.
Thank you, Barry.
Just a point of clarification. I actually didn't have anything to do with the organization. I'm just the fastest typist that Christy knows.
That is not my cat, by the way.
Duly noted.
Anyone else?
I think I've got a little something to share if I can.
Good.
I remember back very early on when, before even any of the expansions had come out, they and I used to run around and quest together, do a couple things on and off. And I remember there was one time that for some reason we were in South Shore and Torren Mill, and there was a very large group of Alliance attacking. And I just typed in chat, "You've got your healing gear on, right?" And he said, "Well, yeah, I've been healing you while you've been killing stuff." And I said, "Good, I'll be back in a minute." And I blinked into the middle of the raid and just started wailing on anything that moved. And I don't think he realized at the time that he was going to get flagged healing me. So about 12 seconds later, as we're standing in the graveyard, in our spirit forms, he said, "So how'd that work out?" I said, "Not very well, but I got a couple of them." And I think he was probably laughing a whole lot, but I don't think we did that for the rest of the day after that.
Sounds about right. Like I said, he was a little too nice for his own good. He'd let you lead him into, well, all kinds of shit.
Anyone else?
Well, I would, but I can't talk and type at the same time.
So type and then read it out loud?
Or just talk.
I'll try for you, Ren.
I'll try not to talk too fast. I had the good fortune of meeting Thay a couple of times at some of the parties that were held at Christie's house. And I don't know how many of you know that Thay, music was very important to him. He was very involved in his choir at church. And he was a hell of a drummer in rock band. I'm actually not sure there was an instrument in rock band he couldn't play. But I will never be able to listen to the song Spirit in the Sky again without thinking of Thay singing the worst possible background vocals I have ever heard in my life. I think probably only Mac, who is a much worse singer, could have possibly done a worse job than Thay did at the background vocals. But the real thing was he made me flub the song because I was laughing so hard. So as far as laughter goes, Thay really gave as good as he got.
You know Mac is in here, right?
He's right behind
Oh, yes. And he is a terrible, terrible singer. But one of the funniest.
Was that a falsetto Spirit in the Sky? Am I remembering that one right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Maxine managed to break Thay.
Singing managed to break everyone.
Well, that's true, but I mean, Thay fell out of his chair. That was great.
Anyone else? All right.
Well, this is Siobhan, and I have a great memory of Thay. He was pretty instrumental in leading a bunch of us through Molten Core a while ago. And he would always pass on rolls for loot. Consistently passed. Always let other people gear up. So finally, some epic piece of God knows what drops. And all of the everybody just passed to let him have it. And he said, no, God damn it, if I'm going to get this, I'm going to get it because I earned it fair and square. Nobody's going to give it to me. So everybody says, fine, slash roll. He rolls a perfect 100. it was just, it was so poetic. It was karma coming back to what a generous person he was.
And did he
And
try
we
to
were
give
all
away
just
anyway?
so excited. I think he, I think he might have. It just spoke to the kind of person he was in game and in real life. Just a really genuine, wonderful person.